T. It's in the name.
Welcome in to the Helping Healing Humor podcast with
Pola
and Kaylie. We're going to be interviewing Ben and Travis today, and we're going to get to that conversation right after these messages.
This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you by the 2023 Heritage event on Saturday, August 26th, featuring an incredible night of music from the frontmen of Country, the Secret Sisters, and Cadence Baker. General admission tickets and table sponsorships are available for purchase. For more information, visit www.hcu.edu. The mission of Heritage Christian University is simple. They aim to advance the churches of Christ by equipping servants through undergraduate and graduate programs. HCU produces effective communicators of the gospel, focusing on evangelism and a commitment to Scripture. Heritage Christian University offers the following degrees: Associate of Arts in Biblical Studies, Bachelor of Arts in Biblical Studies, Master of Arts, Master of Ministry, and Master of Divinity. HCU is accredited by the Association for Biblical Higher Education and is an associate member of the Association of Theological Schools. Since 1968, Heritage Christian University has offered affordable degrees in biblical studies, allowing graduates to thrive in their ministries without the burden of loan debt. For the fall 2023 semester, HCU is offering full tuition scholarships for graduate-level students. For more information about Heritage Christian University or the annual Heritage event, visit www.hcu.edu.
Hi everybody, this is Pola and
This is Kaylie Hendrix.
today we're interviewing Travis Creasy and Ben Hayes at Maywood Christian Camp.
Awesome, Ben. I got the top of the page there, right? It's Travis Creasy and Ben Hayes. That doesn't happen very often, so you're already way cooler than anybody else we ever had on the podcast. But
and we got a break from the intros there, so some great intros. Future podcasters right here, I think.
Yes, that would be a great podcast.
It would be a great podcast.
Maybe that's what we're trying to nudge you people to, the future Ben and Travis app.
Yeah.
With tons of podcasts. And no offense, Ministry League, we still love you. But nonetheless, we're at our favorite place. It's my favorite place on earth. I don't know about you guys or gals. Sorry.
It is indeed the most wonderful time of the year.
We have invited these wonderful people to join us and to ask us some questions burning on their minds. I know they came and they're like, man, there's like 6,000 questions we're going to ask Ben and Travis. And it just so happened that I was like, hey, you want to ask us some questions late at night when you'd rather be sleeping. And so you came up with some. So let's get to it. What do you ladies got on your mind? What would you like to ask us? We've not, I'll go ahead and say, we've not seen these.
What year of Maywood is it for you?
Oof. I always have trouble with this one because I can't remember exactly which year I came.
Because we're old men.
I had a girl ask me in the cabin, she said, "Are you ancient?" I was like,
my goodness.
Girl.
Wow. You're ancient. We are really in trouble. So what year do you think you came? Because I can do it by that.
Well, I came a lot later than I think I did, because I think I was like 14 or 15 before I ever came.
So I either came
I was late in the game
when I was 12 or I came when I was 13.
Okay.
And I came by myself. I mean, like, not by myself, but I came with some people, but I didn't really know a whole lot of people. I think my brother came, and so I came with him. He was like 5 years older than me. And so I didn't come back the next year because I guess I wasn't sold on Maywood. And then the following year, I know, loser. The following year after that, so took a break for a year. The following year I came back and brought Travis. And it was the beginning of Ben and Travis at that point. I mean, it was the early stages. Yeah. And so we came back at like however old he was. So probably like, I think you were probably 14 because I couldn't have been any older than 15 my first. I want to think I was 14. So like 12 and 14. So you might have been 13.
Makes sense.
Something like that.
We'll roll with it. That's what we're rolling with.
So if we say 14, then I have not missed a year since I was 14 years old, and I'm 42.
Man.
So, wow, you said that like I'm old or something.
I'm sorry.
And I've missed 2 years.
Do we want to do the math?
So what's the math on that? I mean, that's going to take us a while, right? So it's been a while. Yeah.
Carry the one.
Carry the one. So, and I think Travis has only missed
years.
Yeah, it's in there.
So if it's 28 for you, it's like 25 for me.
Because you missed that one.
I think I've missed 2.
You missed 2. Okay. So
stupid So dumb, Travis. How dare you, young Travis? You're an idiot.
So how long? What about you guys? How many years have you been coming? You've been coming since you were born, right?
No,
Okay,
I
not-
didn't. I actually didn't come. What's the earliest you can come?
Right
7?
out the oven.
If your parents are here 7, I think, or 6, well, if your parents are here anytime.
Yeah.
But I think you can start camping as a 7-year-old if your parents are here.
So I missed the first year that I could come. I don't really know
but
why.
8 is generally
I think we were in
when everybody
Hawaii.
starts. Oh, we're just in
Yeah,
Hawaii.
something crazy. But then, so I came from when I was 8, and now I'm 19, and I've been every single year since then.
And your
Yeah, it
mom
was like
used to
12
come.
Yeah.
Like she was here every year.
Yeah, she
so.
used to
And
until she got a new job.
Gotcha.
Jobs.
Well, this is my 5th year in week 4, but fun fact, I've actually been in Maywood, or the first time I came, it was 2016, before all of y'all would have known me.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little 12-year-old, came to US with my parents, and I
Nice.
went to week 8, and it was a lot of fun.
Very nice.
Sweet.
Cool.
Excellent. Question number 2.
If y'all are ready, next we want to move on to our spiritual questions.
These spiritual questions.
Spiritual-
Put that in.
But as counselors this year, we got to watch the teens versus being a part of them as much.
Mhm.
So it's definitely an interesting experience. But we've started noticing some consistencies, some common factors between the newer generation of Christians, and we just kind of agree that we see that our newer generation is more open, but in some ways it's more sensitive because of that. So I feel like the kids are more open to being vulnerable and talking it out, and they're more open to different views, but it's much easier for them to get hurt. So one of the questions we have is that how we can create an appealing church community that both will attract people from outside the church, but also promote the personal Christian growth. Because we've noticed also that with kids our age, we really want to have communities, and we want to feel accepted and loved, and we're not afraid to say it. And if you look in the world and you look in the culture outside of Christianity, we'll see all these kids looking for acceptance, and they get it from. But I feel like as Christians, we can appeal in that way too. But how can we balance out acceptance with also having boundaries and having truth? Because I feel like that's just something it's really hard for us to guide and watch over.
People feel judgment. A lot of people, like we talked about the communities, people feel like acceptance in is like, right now it's huge. It's also like, it's almost the end of Pride Month or whatever, but like the LGBTQ community, that's like huge.
Sure.
It's just so like all love and acceptance. And that's not, everything in their community. Everybody has problems. But we don't, they're not taking in people and saying like, okay, well, you need to change this to do whatever. They're just like, oh, whatever, come as you are. And that's where we're different, because we're saying come as you are, but we also have the standards of the Bible, and we're trying to live to that, and that's hard to put out there. So,
And here's the thing that's hard to relate sometimes, but everybody has standards. Even people in the LGBTQ community, there will be a place where they'll go, oh no, that's not accepted, or whatever. There's going to be certain standards that they're going to hold to. It's just that we generally get looked at differently in the Christian community for the standards that we withhold, because people don't necessarily like the standards that we withhold sometimes. But the standards aren't mine. The standards are God's standards. And the churches, I think as a church, and there's two sides to this, and Travis probably has a whole lot more to say too about it, but there's two sides to it. There's one is that the church should be loving and caring and accepting and allowing people to come in and feel safe where they come, where they're coming into. We use the phrase, it's on one of our stickers, that love people where they are, love them enough not to leave them there. There is a point where we look at who Jesus loved, the people that Jesus served, and they were not your upstanding citizens of the world, or they were not people who had no problems. They were the people who did have problems. But he loved them and tried to bring them to a place that was healthier for them. And that's what we sometimes lose sight of, or what the world loses sight of, is God's laws are not to keep us pressed down and be hard on us. They're to make life simpler. But we have made it and almost flipped it the opposite way, is we all just make things so complicated. Well, that's not the intention of it. The intention was to make life better. And God wanted life to be better for his people. And so as a church, we need to be attracting people, bringing people in, but then also helping them understand why there is a standard. Because without the standards, people get hurt. We love God, we love each other, we love ourselves. And when we do those things, then we have a better world. And so I do believe that people should be able to walk into our churches and feel safe. That's why I'm not big on boycotting things and doing things like that, because I feel like if all the voice they ever hear from the church is hate, or what they perceive as hate. Now, Travis said this yesterday at some point, not accepting is not the same thing as hate. And our society has sort of lost sight of that. That I can say, Kaylie, I don't agree with what you're doing. And that doesn't mean I hate you. It just means we disagree. Travis and I disagree on stuff, but we don't hate each other. You know?
Here we go.
And so understanding that that's the case, that I can disagree with you. So, there's people who come into the church I'm going to disagree with, but we try to look, and it doesn't matter what I say, and it doesn't matter what you say. We got to figure out what the Bible says.
I would just add to that, and right where you pick up where you just end, is Jesus is controversial, and we can't make him not controversial, because if he's non-controversial, he's not the Lion of Judah. But there is an aspect of bringing people along to that point where they make that realization. And I think sometimes we cut people off before they even get that opportunity. I've got former students who are out there, saying God's calling these people, and I believe that he's calling all people, but there is an aspect of submission that we don't get in America, that we don't really understand, because we have so much personal liberty, and I'm a liberty guy. I love America, but love it, and it's great, but Jesus is sovereign, and he's going to call anything that we find pride in that is not of him, and that's not just our sexual identity or desires, that's ball teams, right? And I think you can love football. I love football. I love Alabama. Roll Tide. But if it's warring for the number one spot on my throne, he's saying no, that there is no identity other than the one that starts with Jesus. And so our goal is to, like Ben's saying, make a comfortable place where people can come and share their struggles and not be immediately cast out and judged, but to give them opportunity to come to the point where they're ready to submit those things at the throne of Jesus. And then when we do, we're like, yeah, and we cheer them on, because I think the people who have the hardest time in June are the people who have chosen Jesus over that lifestyle. And they have a whole month, and it makes it worse when Christians come along and go, yeah, that's okay, you just do. And they live that life. And they're like, I've chose Jesus over this, and here I have these Christians telling me, and I know better.
Because there are people who
the world is going to be the world. They're going to do the things that they do. And Paul, but we're basically told, don't be shocked when the world is the world. But Christians, we hold to a higher standard. Somebody who claims to believe in Jesus, then we have a reason to kind of stick our nose in their business and go, that's not living to the standard. Ben can do that to me because we have that relationship. I would imagine you two can do that to one another because you have that type of relationship. But you've got to have that relationship first. And I think our memes and our Facebook posts do not accomplish that. And I know for a fact I've done that and I'm tempted to do it again. And so just as a practical thing, if somebody posts something that I don't agree with, and I cannot remember a time where I made a good comment about a picture of their family or something successful they've done, then I don't have any business making a comment about something they post I don't agree with. because we don't have
If
that
I've not
relationship.
encouraged
If I've not
them,
said,
yeah.
hey man, your dog's supposed to be up and down the world, or interacted in a way that's positive, I don't have the license to come along when they post something that goes against my beliefs to lock them up in the comments. And I've really tried hard, and it's been a struggle to keep my mouth shut, and especially on social media if I don't have something. Haven't tried to encourage them on something else prior. So
Yeah, but if
just
they,
something practical for folks at home.
yeah, and if they come, they start posting things, or they see that that's all we ever do is post negative things, and all we ever do is, bash them. Here's kind of the mark.
We've
okay?
murdered nuance.
Yeah.
No nuance. There's no. This meme is either correct in every 100% of the way,
Right.
or it's completely wrong in 100% of the way. And it's like, no, there's some good to that, but it's also not perfect.
But if I'm not calling out all the other sins, then why am I calling that one out? There's plenty of other things, and so that's where that community has a right to be a little bit angry with Christian community. Is we've called out, a lot of people have called them out over and over and over and over and over again. And part of that is because it's been so in our face. I get that. Yeah, I mean, it's been way, and I get that part of it. But there's other sins, there's other things that people do. And so until we're fair about the fact that we might not say things about the other stuff. And so I think that's where, the whole baking a cake thing, if somebody wouldn't bake a cake for a couple, that goes to a kind of a deeper conversation there. But well, what about couples that have been living together or been doing other things that we would classify as sinful? Are you going to bake them a cake or not?
Exactly.
If it's just about the fact that they were a homosexual couple, then that does become bigotry. If I'm going, I won't do it for you, but I'll do it for anybody else that's, in all these other situations.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to be consistent. And when we're consistent in how we treat people, then they will more likely choose to listen.
It's always our
we
job
can
to
show
be kind
love.
first. Kind first.
Show love, and then we'll see. The other part you kind of said earlier was about the sensitivity part, and that people are so sensitive. And I do think that's something that I hope our culture works on a little bit, is that I need to understand that other people's words don't have to control me. You know what I'm saying? And so there's times where, people have said hurtful things to me, but I have to kind of choose to be hurt by them. I give you the power. If I get hurt by the words that you said to me, I've given you the power over my mind. And I'm not willing to do that with people. So if somebody is being harsh and ugly, I can turn that off. Like, I'm not listening to that. It's not true. It's not something I'm going to change. It's not something I want to change. I'm not going to listen to it. So at some point we have to learn that, okay, people are just going to be mean. I've got to learn when I can cut that off and when I need to listen to it.
There's a choice.
Part of that's being secure in where Jesus is at.
Yeah.
If Jesus is on the throne, he loves me, and I love him.
I don't care what anybody else says.
Then, hey, you don't have the authority unless I give it to you.
I think what we've noticed also is that there's just a big difference between our generation being very sensitive and older generation hiding away their problems.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to kind of move on and see, still talking about that and talking about our differences, but what are some ways that we can bridge that gap and we can learn to communicate better with the older generation?
They just put us in the old generation.
Step number one. She just got step number one.
But like how to move closer to each other without feeling judged, if that
Are we
makes
talking
sense.
about within the church, or are we talking about in general?
In the
With
church.
The church.
Okay, so in the church it should be easier because you should have a group of people who want to do so, because we're the church. But the short answer is that's not always the case, okay? So
I think some of our structure, I'll use the example of this, like I was a teenager when cell phones first started. And so like my mom had no ability to help me cope with that.
And so the first cell phone I got, within 6 months of having it, I ran up a $700 phone bill. She had no idea.
That was back when
Yeah.
you had minutes. And
Yeah,
you
that you had to
ran
call
minutes,
at certain times. Like there's a prime calling area.
Remember, we're
That's
old.
rough.
And I used
That's
it, right?
rough.
Well,
There's
she
no
took
unlimited.
she took the phone away. I don't blame her. I wanted her to take the phone away because obviously I couldn't handle it. Well, she didn't have any idea how. Like that was a whole new thing. And so, well, I come along now. I'm a parent, and I've lived the cell phone age, and so I'm better equipped, hopefully, to help my kids kind of deal with that and kind of limit that capacity. And so you're taking, like our grandparents, the greatest generation, and I agree with that title. I would give them that because I haven't beat the Nazis or stormed D-Day, but I think some people equate their greatness with never talking about their problems. I had a grandmother who had a baby die very early, and I never knew that, and I was young. But to find that out and to realize I never heard her talk about that doesn't mean she didn't talk about that. But that you're exactly right. They were taught that, and so I'm kind of 2 generations removed from that, and then I'm that generation that, like, nothing really offends us. It's like you do you, and I do me, and like neither shall they meet. Like what you do in your bedroom is your business, and I would much rather that stay that way. Like, the whole parading this around is like so out of my comfort zone because I grew up in don't ask, don't tell. But I think us looking at your generation, there are parts of it that I'm very jealous of you, and that's one of them, that you have been encouraged to be in touch with your feelings. Because there's things that happened in my childhood that I can't tell you how old I was when it happened, because I was like, I know it happened, but I just buried it and like have never dealt with it and never plan to deal with it. And if I can help it, I won't deal with it. And so there's parts of that I'm
Let's
like,
talk about it.
yeah, that's why I do this podcast. So if you're like, why are they so annoying with this podcast every week? It's like, because Travis needs it for healing. But,
Therapy.
yes. And so there's aspects of both generations that I'm like super jealous of. Like I would love to be courageous enough to think that I could storm the beaches if somebody needed me. And part of that happens this week. There are things I see these kids dealing with. I'm like, I can be courageous enough because I've dealt with some of these struggles to say I've had these struggles. And for a lot of people, that's enough. We had Q&A today. I confessed some things, and I've already had 2 kids come up to me and go, thank you for that,
Yeah.
And there was no great theological debate. I just said, hey, I struggled with this when I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So there's aspects of both that I'm very, like, I want to take the good from both. And I think that's the approach, that both have good things. And I feel like I'm a meld of those. Like I grew up in the analog. Like when I was little, everything was analog, and now I'm in the digital. And so I've bridged both. And I can take both, and I can help my mom with her cell phone. And then you guys come along, you teach me something new about technology, but I always feel like I'm kind of behind. But
that's why we still need Will Mahan to help us.
Yes, that's why Will hangs around. But that would be my unprofessional, unprofessional take. Is like, the thing is, we have to come to it and go, all these generations have something that is good to bring to the table, and all these generations have things that they need help. And I think Satan takes a great joy in not having communication.
So, like, a couple of practical things that I would say is there are some guys now that do what's called intergenerational ministry. Lonnie Jones actually does that at the church that he works at. Michael Jackson, not the singer, and apparently not the guy who runs and is the manager of the Slim Chickens in Muscle Shoals, is also called Michael Jackson. I saw that on the door the other day. Different guy. This Michael Jackson goes to church with us, and he does a seminar on this. And so he brings in, he comes in to teach the class at churches. So if you're interested in having him come and do that, he would do so. He'll pull, that's just a little plug for Michael, but he'll pull different generations up on stage with him. So he'll have 2 or 3 people from the greatest generation, the boomers and the zennials. And
also, I get all that mixed up.
Yeah, Gen Z and Gen X and
I get called boomer.
All the
I'm not a
different
boomer.
ones. Yeah.
I'm not a boomer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
get really offended
I
when
get
they
called
call
a
it
boomer more than you do. But you got all these different generations, and so he'll pull two of them up on stage, and sometimes more than that of the generations, and he'll have 3 or 4 from each one, and he'll ask them the same questions and listen to the answers. It's really cool to see how that works because, there was a couple of times where he had like the oldest generation and the teenagers up on stage at the same times, and he would ask them, what do we need to do to help bridge the gap between you guys? And the older people said, the young people don't talk to us. They don't want to talk to us. They never say anything to us. And we're lonely and we would love for people to talk to us. And the teenagers go, well, the old people just always stay mad at us and they don't ever talk to us. And they got the same answer from both sides of it. So the answer in short is you have to bridge the gap. And that's what I've tried to do is I've tried to be a person that can talk to people in every generation. I don't go to church and just talk to the teenagers. I don't go to church and just talk to the older people. I try to talk to every person that I can. I don't care what their age is. I promise you there's little old ladies that want to have a joking conversation with you just like a teenager does. They would love for you to come up and tell them a joke or pick at them or say something. They would love for you to hug them because they don't get a lot of touch because a lot of them are living alone now. Mm-hmm. And so if a teenager walks up and just said, you look so pretty today, and puts their arm around them, it will start bridging the gap. And if they're an older person listening and you go up to a teenager and just show them a little love, there's two or three little girls that go to church with us, or little kids, but there's one little girl that, she's, probably about 4, and I'm going to embarrass myself because I really don't know how old she is, but I don't really care. That doesn't matter to me, but she hunts me down to give me a hug, and it means the world to me, but it's because I've always done that to her, and so at every church service, it doesn't matter what room I'm in, she finds me, gives me a hug before she leaves. And so it's that kind of stuff where we go, I'm going to get on your level, and I always drop to a knee, give her a hug, pick her up sometimes, but it's get on the level of the people who you're around. And if you'll go to them, don't sit back and go, well, they don't talk to me. You go talk to people. And when you talk to people, they will talk to you. Now, 1 or 2 might not. You're going to find some grumpy old men.
That's going to take some effort.
Yeah, but that's where, go back to your other question, if I find a grumpy old man who, seems to be that way, what I've tried to learn is that, and establish in my own mind, is usually it's not about something I did. He's hurting already. So if I just listen, even if he's getting on to me about something, I just listen. The next time he comes around, he won't even be bothered about whatever it was before because I didn't make a big deal about it. I didn't argue with him, just listen to him.
We grew up going to Jacksonburg,
and it was a lot
to some degree. Yeah, we didn't have a big intergenerational name for it, but I'm not raging against structure. I love structure and churches, but I think sometimes the youth ministry is the youth ministry, and everything else, or however you break it down, and we break it into that, and it's kind of built that way, and there's positives to that, but you
mesh the groups, do stuff together.
As far as it depends on you, be at peace with all men. So
do stuff where everybody's together.
It's really helpful because we've been really stressing community. We split our college class into girls and guys for about a quarter
and a half.
Yeah,
quarter and a half.
And we really just wanted to talk about community and just how to do that. And we talked about, a bunch of other girl stuff. But that was the main thing. And I think me and Pola, not to, say other people in our church, in our group, are not concerned about it. But, we got really concerned about it. Because, I spend a lot of time there. We go there twice a week. And I don't want them to be people that I just see twice a week. I want to have real community.
Acts 2. That all things
day
in common daily broke bread together. And I think, once again, I love talking politics, and that's not what this is about, but I think people get into movements, and we see people who get into movements and get drawn into those things because there's a community there. Mm-hmm. And they want this big sweeping change. The U.S. government, or wherever you're from, is going to come in and make these laws and these rules, and it's going to fix everything, and that's just never happened in the history of human beings. But Jesus got it right when he said, love your neighbor
relationships.
The person next door to you is where the difference is made, and it can be generational. And very rarely does a law ever really change much of anything, especially the heart. And that's what we're trying to get.
We love y'all
Paul's
so
really
much.
happy.
Well,
Paul's
thank
really
you
happy.
guys for being here and being great examples.
Staying up really late when
Yeah.
you probably would rather be in bed.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
you for-
Thanks for this wonderful episode.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.